Hey everyone, welcome to the first episode of Developer Discussions. In this video, me and Sliver are having a conversation about what a developer goes through, the issues they have, some of the hardships of what they got to go through. And we not only talk about with independent developers, but we also discuss like some of the problems that maybe some of the major developers would have as well. So before we get into the video, here's a couple clips of me gaming with Sliver. Enjoy. Ooh, right in front of us, right in front of us. He just ran right past me.
They're running away? Are they running into Boston? Where are they going?
That way. I just got one of them.
I hear one over here.
Yep.
Come on, Hunt.
Shouldn't have stood still.
Got another one in the construction house.
I'm gonna clip that one too.
You sure that was two of them, or was that a revive?
No, that was the second one that passed me.
Okay, I didn't see either one. Oh, you got somebody right here. Hit him. What? Okay, I don't know what the fuck's going on with this game, bro.
Oh, how did I miss that?
Shot me with a Centennial, by the way. Yeah, I wouldn't bother. Not that. Right there.
Yep.
Good shit. Go for the revive. I'll take the death if I get it. No. Don't do that. She's gonna get you. I'm telling you, she's right there in that doorway, bro.
He's in the
Just go ahead
doorway.
and go for the. Yeah,
Yeah.
go for the necro. Yeah. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, she was in the doorway of that construction house. I don't know if she's still there, but I'd rather you not risk it. And circle around.
I think I see someone right there, but I can't really tell if that's a grunt or if that's them.
No, it's her. It's her. Yeah, she did the same thing to me. Where were they at? Ah!
He made me jump too.
I have fucking jumped from my fucking chair, bro. Yeah. EMF 5. Thank you very fucking much.
Where are you?
Yeah, no shit. Let's get out of here. Oh my god! That guy's trying to call me.
All right, so why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I am
Like what are your favorite hobbies? What are some of the things that you enjoy when you're not developing games?
honestly playing games. I it's just a common pastime for me to always play some kind of video game or play some kind of, board game or something like that, or always be thinking about um some form of interaction, either whether that's with software in general or just with a video game or a game type in a broader sense.
Okay.
Other than that, I just I really like spending time with my family. With my wife, my roommates, and the animals. The dogs, the cats, and stuff like
Ah,
that.
an animal person. That's always awesome. I know. I know. For those of you that don't know, we are actually real life friends. Went to high school together and everything. And he has,
Unfortunately,
right, right. He has some of the sweetest animals. I love his dog Leia. She is my best buddy every time I go over to his house. But so with you playing these video games and stuff like that, what was it that inspired you to become a game developer yourself?
um, well, like I said, like I was saying earlier, when we were talking earlier, just when I was in my early 20s and stuff like that, I didn't have a whole lot of money to really go out and do the normal things that normal, early 20-year-olds would do and whatnot, or young 20-year-olds would do. So I would just I would save up my money and then go buy a video game here and there. And I kind of fell in love with video games all over again in my early 20s. And I was talking to a friend one day about, hey, like, man, I just don't know what to do. I kind of go to work and then I come home and I play some video games and then I go out every now and then. I just, like, what else is there to this whole gig or whatever? Maybe I'll just go back to school, but I don't even know what to go back to school for. And he's like, you always talk about the way that this game or that game could be different or be better. And honestly, you have some pretty good ideas. So why don't you just go to school for that?
Oh,
And
okay.
that's something that kind of like took me by surprise because whenever I don't know if you remember or not, but when we were going to school, like there was no actual game development type of curriculum either in
Yeah,
high
the
schools.
only thing you had was web design at the time. That was it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you had like graphics designs and web development and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course software development. So like people that wanted to make video games had to go to school for a lot of different things
Yeah.
related to software. You couldn't just go to school and learn just video game development. Um so I was like, you know what, maybe I will check into that. So I started checking into different schools and whatnot, and sure enough at this point, because this was 2010, maybe a little later. Schools have started creating specified courses just for game development and game design.
Yeah, yeah, I remember because I wanted to. That's when they started advertising real big about train as a game tester, or go to school to
Yeah,
be a
yeah,
great game tester. I remember though, thinking same situation, being in between jobs, not quite knowing what to do with my life, and thinking, hey, man, I want to be a game tester. And that's when streaming video games on Twitch started getting real big. I
yeah.
remember
This
thinking that would be cool.
I remember seeing all the like the little ads and stuff like that on social media and stuff like that. Get paid to be a game tester or get paid to play video games or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then you click on it and it was an actual ad to like an online college or to a
Yeah.
local college or whatever that had just started up a game design curriculum.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. That's pretty cool. Hey, it's funny how you don't think yourself to do some of these things, but then one of your friends just happened to be like, "Hey, why don't you're
Yeah, he
always into
just
this? Why don't you go check that out?" And then you're
he
like,
just
"Hmm,
called it how he saw it. He was just like,
yeah,
you're always
yeah,
you're always doing this, you're always doing that, and yeah, you're pretty decent at it. Why don't you go learn how to do it for real? So I
right,
was like,
right."
all right, that's a,
So it was one
that,
it was one of your friends that inspired you. That was like, "Hey, well, you enjoy doing this kind of stuff, aren't you?" It's like me with my wife. Is she's always criticizing food, and she's always been able to cook. And then it was like, well, why don't you
right.
just become a chef? You like
Yeah,
doing it. Why
exactly.
not? Why not become a chef? And now she's actually going to school to be a teacher for chefs because that's what she likes to do. She likes to cook. She likes to teach. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So my next question to you is: as of late, what has been the biggest issues you have faced with your game development?
Uh, the biggest issue that I have faced is a physical impairment of my finger growing a pyogenic granuloma. It's not so rapid typing on a keyboard. It tends to rupture. But gaming where your hand is kind of in one spot and doesn't really move a whole lot,
Mhm.
it's not really that big of a deal. But as far as like other than me personally, or as far as like other physical elements. I think the biggest block for game development, for Dark Mind, honestly, is just having the resources that other people assume that game developers have. I've got one other person that helps me with development and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
He lives in a very strained area. It's hard for it's. I mean, he's got a job and he's working consistently. Um, but he's in an area that it's very hard for him to find another job or find a more flexible job and stuff like that. So, and he's also got quite a big family, especially by today's standards. So, I don't really have anybody that's there to like kind of back me up or help me out with writing code, or more importantly, developing assets and stuff like that. And I think that that's just something that a lot of people might take for granted, is like, oh, well, they're an indie studio, they've got, two or three people.
Mm-hmm.
All two or three of those people are constantly working in their free time, and that's just simply not the case, because a lot of times, you know we're having to choose, well, do we go out to dinner with the family, do we sit down and eat dinner at the table, or do I bypass all that, get a plate of food, and shrug off my family for a week or two while I work on this video game? Or do I work on the game by myself? Do I learn not only how to code, do I also learn how to build models and do texture creation and everything else, which I've had to learn all of that myself. Um, but honestly, it's just the resources that people assume that developers have, even independent developers, is often a fraction of what they actually have. Just because you might have two or three people working on it doesn't mean that there are two or three people that are always available to work on it. So that's probably the biggest constraint with us, is that, and of course, if you're not making any money, if you're not making any financial gains on these projects, then it's hard to just hire people in, and then it's hard to find people that are reliable that you don't know, to just bring in and trust that they're not going to just go, oh, this is a great game idea, I think I'll go make this on my own, because they've got five or six people that are available to help them out,
Yeah,
because they just happen to be in a better situation, or a better development network or whatnot.
I got you. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like with my job that my real life job. I mean, like I said, we've known each other for years, and you know what I do in real life. You know, I work on rail
Hmm.
cars, and being the welder in the rail car, I can't do my job without the support of someone there. I mean, I literally cannot weld
Right.
without having that hole watch, and so I get it. I that can be just something relating to real life. Um, a real life job, and I'm not saying that being a game developer isn't a real life job, but what I'm trying to get at is
No,
that
but like a
an
day to day
average
grind, I
Joe,
get what you're
yeah,
saying.
an average Joe like me, um, I just wanted to point that out to everybody watching
Yeah,
is
I
is
mean, like,
that
if you don't,
is that you have the daily struggles, the same daily struggles that we would have.
just in a different way. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, if you don't have your whole watch there, or if you don't have the operator there, maybe he's running late or whatever to write your permit, or if you're a truck driver and the warehouse hasn't finished loading the
yeah,
damn trailer,
yeah,
or whatever the situation is, if dispatch isn't picking up your call while you're trying to make this retail run, everything kind of comes to a halt. Like, yeah, you could go do the job, but if you don't have that backup, if you don't have that support, it gets a lot more difficult than
yeah. Well, I mean, and the
than it should
main
be.
one of the reasons why I was asking this question is because I see all the time, especially in like Phasmophobia Discord,
Hmm.
or better, or even uh, more accurate would be the Cry or Hunt Discord. Is where you will
Hmm.
constantly see people saying, "Come on, Dennis," and they always target Dennis because he's the lead developer, is
Lead designer, but
or
yeah.
lead designer. But yeah, he they target him as like, "Hey, you need to get this game to work," and it's like, hold on, it's not just him. It's like he's having to depend on this person with being a major. Now yours is more constrained for the simple fact of it is just you basically. But
Right.
I just wanted to
Currently.
point this out because this is one of the things that kind of pesters me the most, and the thing that I don't understand with the fact of me being dependent on my whole or Firewatch at my job is we there's always a dependent on the next person, and some people
Right.
just sit there and think that it's just one person doing all this just because they're the face that does the, for example, when they do their Twitch events and stuff like that. So and it's like,
Right.
hold on now, y'all got to realize, if y'all remember the first developer stream that they did, it wasn't just Dennis in there. It was several other designers and developer personnel that were in that first Twitch event, and then after that, it's been mostly Dennis.
Right.
But it's like it's just
Yeah,
I feel like it's I feel like fighting for the other side of what's going on, and that's why I had to ask that, is because I had to bring that to light. Is it's not just y'all are just regular average people just like us who have the same struggles, um the same problems that we have in our real life jobs, and in the real world, and not just in the digital world where
hmm
is y'all's 9 to 5, is y'all's is in the digital world, to where y'all have the same exact struggles, whether it's time constraints or it's lack of personnel because someone else's real life kind of got in the way. So, and it happens. So you have to,
yeah,
you have to understand that kind of
or a
stuff.
physical impairment too. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, a lot of people think, well, there's not a whole lot that would keep you from developing a video game. Like, how hard does that work? And yeah, you're right. Physically, it's not that physically demanding. Having an ailment on your finger is a direct
No.
impairment. But a lot of uh, something else people don't really either don't recognize or don't don't know about
Mm-hmm.
is that creating logic and writing code and actually just getting it to work. Some of the simplest things that you would just take for granted, vaulting over a half structure like a fence or something like that in a video game. Some of that logic, if you're coding that straight from the ground up, because I'm the type of developer that wants to know every little bit of what the code is doing. Now that
Yeah.
doesn't mean that I have to write every bit of the code, but if I'm reading the code, I want to know what it's doing. Um, so I tend to there's a lot of digital packages and stuff like that you can buy that, like, for example, have like a vault animation with the code attached to it to be able to do those things very, very
Mm-hmm.
easily. You just plug and play and go. But I'm the type of person that, hey, if that code ever breaks down, if for whatever reason, like, you're jumping over the fence and they don't clear the fence, or you fall through the geometry of the world or whatever, I want to know why that's happening. Um, and you can lose that ability to diagnose what's wrong with that code or to fix it quickly if
Mm-hmm.
you weren't there whenever it was created. And sometimes these packages, they take something that a logic that should be this long, really simple to read, and they turn it into a page long thing because they've had to account for other redundancies or other logic checks that
Mm-hmm.
happen elsewhere in their code.
Yeah.
And as far as being like a lead game designer, and people calling out Dennis, or people calling out the guy from No Man's Sky, I can't remember his name right now, but or Todd Howard from Bethesda. You know, the problem with these people is with being in that position is that some of these people know how to develop games. Some of them know how to write code. They know how to properly flowchart. Some of them wrote the entire game design document, which can be thousands of pages long at times.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but a lot of times they started out as a cog, as a gear in the works of that project, and because they were the lead game designer and they're doing the Twitch interviews and so on and so forth, or even going on late night talk shows, um, they end up becoming more the face of the game, the spokesperson or whatever, and they actually
Mm-hmm.
kind of fall away from the actual development cycle of the project. So they get a lot of the flack for the shortcomings of the game, whenever they've had to unfortunately pass that torch off and go, look, I'm way too busy
Yeah,
to continue holding the blue collar side of this. I have to go meet with investors. I have to go do a PR run, or go do some interviews, or whatever the situation may be. I need you to take care of the code. And if that code breaks, they might be the person that people go to and go, hey, the code's not working, or whatever. This update is failing, and they might be the person that can help them fix it. But it's not ultimately entirely their fault if
yeah,
something is not working correctly.
yeah,
So
and
yeah,
that's
it's a
that's the
double-edged
thing
sword.
that yeah, and that's the thing that gets me about it. It's like, man, y'all first of all, it's like you get guys that'll go and play the games, and I'm not gonna say any names because there are just
Yeah,
distinctive people that actually do this. But it's also a generalization problem. It's a general
right,
problem amongst any game you play, because you're always going to have that one person that goes, "Oh no, I killed him! I killed him! Come on, Dennis, you need to fix your game." And I only use Dennis's because that's a major game that I do stream a lot. Is
right.
Hunt, but is come on, Dennis, fix your game, Dennis. And it's like, hold on, wait a minute. Um, you missed because you missed.
Well,
It's like you ever played tag as a kid. You ever played tag as a kid, or Cowboys and Indians, or cops and robbers as a kid. Oh no, I shot you. No, you didn't. But I
well,
shot you. No, you didn't.
and
It's
that was the beauty of Nerf guns, because you could actually shoot somebody and see the Nerf dart bounce off of them without hurting them.
right,
You
right.
didn't have to use BB guns anymore. Uh,
But but
but
it's
I've got my own opinions on that sort of thing. I do think that if you can put forward a little bit more of the finances towards making your game more stable, building things that actually, even if you got to go back to the drawing board a little bit and restabilize or rebalance your game,
no.
um, rework some stuff to make it a better experience for the player, then you should do that. I've always believed that the best game is the one that feels the most fair to play without losing its challenge. So it's not necessarily the one that always has something new added
Mhm.
to it. Um, I mean, it kind of goes back to the whole Mario thing. There wasn't a whole lot to do in it. I mean, it was a platformer. You ran forward, you ran back, and you can only run back so far. Unless you got a flower, then you could throw fireballs and stuff like that. But like that was, and a star made you invincible. Like that was pretty much it. But the game was stable and it was balanced, and there was the right amount of challenge, and there was the right amount of that of ease of playing the game.
Yeah.
So if you have a community that's going, hey, look, this is wrong with your game. This is too overpowered, or this is too slow, or this is too unstable, or something like that. I understand you have to go, well, we're working on this other stuff first. We have to prioritize this stuff first before we can go back and work on that. But you definitely should revisit that. That should be a top priority, to going back and revisiting those things to make that game a more enjoyable experience. Because eventually, what you're going to have is just people that just aren't having fun playing your game anymore. And if you don't have people having fun with it, then you might get people that buy the game. It might be a successful game, but if they're not sticking around and continuing to buy it, then you're forced to either just stop support on it, or go, okay, we're going to make number two, or we're going to make number three. We're going to make the next one. And at that point, people really aren't going to take you too seriously with it. People will wait years if they have to for a game to be done well
Mhm.
versus a game that is done quickly. And I think that is something
You know,
that a lot of people.
a good example of that where they took the time to do it was Cyberpunk 2077. They kept delaying the release because it wasn't quite right. However, where they messed up with PC, or actually no, I think it was console that had the issues, was not all their ducks were in a row, but because people were starting to get impatient, they folded. But I honestly think that 2077, Cyberpunk 2077, would have had a better result if they'd have gone ahead and said, no, we don't have all the bugs worked out. We want to release a good quality game. Um, Let us get to where at least we have the minute amount of bugs instead of a whole bunch of major bugs still going on.
Well,
They,
they did. CD Projekt Red did do that to an extent, and they did it the most that they could. But the problem wasn't necessarily the overall public pushing back and going, "Hey, we want this game now. We want this game now." The problem with that was more of an internal situation where the people that were funding the game, their investors in CD Projekt Red were like, "Look, we gotta get this game out. Like
Mhm.
we've been developing it now for 7 years or whatever. We've been hyping it up for the past 3 years. It's got to come out now. We can't delay it anymore. If we delay it anymore, we're gonna have more people canceling their pre-orders. We're gonna have more people just not buying the game when it comes out, and so on and so forth." And so again, like I said, that kind of it's a double-edged sword. You run that balance of, do we release something quickly or do we release something that's more stable?
Yeah.
And a lot of people have lost faith in Cyberpunk. I haven't bought it yet. I do plan on buying it at some point.
Same.
Um,
Same.
but I do think that I still I'm still a little bit uh, like in favor of CD Projekt Red. I still think that they're going to pull that one back out. I think that they are going to support Cyberpunk. I only time will tell if I'm wrong about that or not.
Yeah.
But I didn't think that No Man's Sky was going to make any amount of comeback, and Hello Games did an amazing job saying, okay, well we suffered that lawsuit, but we are making things better, and they are an extremely rare case, but they did make a comeback with that project, and they've
Yeah.
done very very well because of it. And that redemption arc um has really, like, if they were going to go, okay, we're going to release a new game, people would be like, okay, great, take your time.
Yeah.
We will wait as long as need, as long as we need to make that happen. um and I think the same thing that happened with No Man's Sky also happened with Cyberpunk, is that No Man's Sky said you're going to be able to do this, and a laundry list of things that you were going to be able to do at launch, and they just pushed out before they were ready to do that.
Yeah.
And the same thing happened with Cyberpunk.
Yeah,
Cyberpunk
they
said that,
just
hey,
they pushed it out too soon. They should have just, if they would have just waited, even if it would have taken another full year, you'd be surprised how patient people can actually be. If anything, for me, it's the anticipation of the new game. It's
yeah,
the
that also does backfire a little bit too, because whenever you look at Star Citizen, for example, has been in development for I think almost 10 years now.
mhm.
Um, and it's just now it's getting to a stable point where people are actually enjoying playing the game. But now there's hardly, I mean, there's people that are still playing it, but there's not as many people that are interested in that project as they were,
When it
whenever they
first,
first did their Kickstarter.
yeah.
Right. So,
Well, I'm
but
not.
at that
Well,
same
I'm not
time,
saying wait a decade, but I mean, it just
yeah,
6 more months to work out the bugs. Put the like a beta out on uh on the PlayStation, and a select few
mm,
who pre-order have access to this beta to test it,
right,
to make sure that it actually works properly before they release the full on game. Before they release
right.
the full thing to console. If they would have done something like that, it probably would have gone a lot smoother, and people would probably wouldn't have been near as upset. But
Yeah, and that's why I really think whenever I hear the rumors that there was a lot of internal push to actually just push the game out,
mhm.
before even the developers really wanted to push the game out. That's why I tend to believe uh, those are more true than people want to give credit towards.
Yeah.
But
Well, I
again,
mean,
I'm still holding out my optimism. It's a careful optimism that I'm holding, but
no.
I'm still holding an optimism that they are going to make that project as good as good and as functional as they said that they were going to make it.
So you as an individual developer, luckily, you yourself being independent, and it basically just being you and, like you said earlier, one other guy. Um,
Hmm.
you really don't have that issue, but because you're on your own, it's your company, this is you. other
Right.
other than other than maybe later on, as you network and meet more people, for example, like what you and I both know, Nick Ragami, who I will be
Hmm. Yep.
interviewing at another later date. But you and Nick Ragami, you both know him, so if you two teamed up, you might would push him, say, hey, could you finish your part so that I can, excuse me, finish mine. But at the same time, though, you don't have, like, the bigger companies, they have a deadline they got to meet. It's like, we got to have it out. We said we were going to release it by this day. We got to push. It's about the bottom dollar. And that's one reason why I do support the little guys such as yourself, is for the simple fact of you're more about the customer, whereas versus about you're more about quality than speed. You know, you want it,
Well,
you want to be
it be
efficient. You want to be efficient, but at the same
yeah.
time, you don't want to um, put out a shit game or a high quality game that just doesn't work. Should I say? Because Cyberpunk, from everything, I haven't actually played it, but I have seen some gameplay of it. It looks like a good quality game, but you know some of the things didn't work because there were so many bugs. So, but that's one cool thing about being an individual or independent developer is that you don't have that, do you? You don't have that someone sit there behind you sitting there saying, "Hey, we need to get this done."
Well, it it's it's a different kind of counterweight. Okay, I don't
Mm-hmm.
have that particular issue of pushing something out very quickly because I haven't announced the game.
Mm-hmm.
I've got two or three different projects that I'm working on and that I'm juggling on. Um, but I haven't announced, hey, you know, uh, Game X is coming out in 2022. So I'm not the public isn't like going, hey, when's Game X coming out, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so I don't have that. I also don't have investors or financial backers or anything like that
Mm-hmm.
coming up to me and being like, "Hey, we want to see a return on this investment. We've given you $10,000 or we've given you $100,000. When are we going to start seeing that?" And on the same flip side of that, I also don't have $100,000 to, or whatever amount of money to say, hey, look, like my partner, for example, hey, Zareth, I'm gonna pay you,
Mm-hmm.
however much money you need. We'll discuss salary or whatever, and you can work for me full time. I don't have that. I don't have that ability to do that.
Yeah.
But I also don't have the luxury of doing that, and I also don't have the restriction of get this out so that I don't run broke, so that
Mm-hmm.
the person that I've hired, the people that I'm paying for, so that they don't have to worry about paying their bills. You know,
I got you.
that's the thing that like these major developers or even these indie developers like the Denider from Phasmophobia, if they've hired people, they've got to pay them. If they don't pay them, they don't eat, their kids don't eat, their animals don't eat, the lights get turned off in their house and so on and so forth. And it's like, hey, I I left my software development job at this very reputable company to come work with you, or I left my construction job to come work with you. I can't work this job for free, forever. So there there's a balancing factor in that as inherently as well, because you know I don't have to worry about paying anyone because I don't have the ability to pay anyone.
Mm-hmm.
But on the flip side of that, I don't have the resources that other people have because of that. So it's kind of like your first job. Whenever you first graduate high school, or you're still in high school, whatever. It's like, well, I need a car to get to my job, but I need a job to buy the car. And then you start, well, the bus doesn't run on this time, or Uber's too expensive, or whatnot. Like it's kind of that same conflict. If I had the money to hire people, I absolutely would.
Mm-hmm.
But if I had the money to hire people, I would have to make sure that we are releasing a project before we run out of money.
Yeah.
So I think that that's a struggle that any developer, whether they're independent or AAA, has to face. Now, obviously, if they're a bigger AAA, not saying CD Projekt Red is a bigger AAA company, or
Mm-hmm.
Crytek, but one of these much bigger companies, then obviously they got a little bit of leeway there. That's why they can have a lot more game modes, or release a game every year or two. That's why they can do that, because they have that flexibility and the finances that they have.
I got you. All right. So, we're gonna go on to the next question. What engine do you prefer and why? Like, what What engine do you prefer to use when you're developing your games?
When I was going to school, I was trained in using Unity.
Hmm.
After school, I learned a little bit of the CryEngine. I learned quite a bit about the Unreal Engine. But ultimately, I've defaulted back to going back to Unity, just because, I think it's more just what I'm familiar with. Um, there are there are benefits and drawbacks to each game engine. Unity and Unreal are pretty parallel. Unreal has a little bit better multiplayer support than Unity does as far as like in-engine multiplayer support. Now there
Hmm.
are um, side-loaded applications and engines that you can use with Unity that work quite well that offer that multiplayer support that's not there. Um, but yeah, if I had to just choose right off the bat, I'd probably say just Unity right off the bat, just because it's what I'm the most familiar with. It's what I've been working with the most.
So it's more of a
Um,
familiarity thing. It's
yeah, it's more of a familiarity thing. But honestly, when it comes to functionality or of what each of these engines can do, they're they're all they're all kind of the same depending on what kind of game you're making. If you're making just a first person shooter that's like a single player first person shooter,
hmm.
then all three of those game engines, even Lumberyard from Amazon or Godot, most of all of them can do pretty much the exact same things in different ways, but they can pretty much all accomplish that goal. If you're looking for something that's a little bit more multiplayer based. It depends
Hmm.
on if it's going to be an MMO or if it's just going to be like a battle royale or whatever. But then you might want to consider like different game engines, like Lumberyard or Unreal or something like that. But as far as like just ease of learning, as far it's a well known knowledge that if you want to learn a game engine that has the absolute most knowledge and the best community to learn from is Unity, because that's what that was their that was their build up for their publicity.
Okay.
It was all about teaching everybody how to use a game engine, how to use their game engine, and some of the most basic things that are hard to understand or that somebody might start out to learn, you can't find in other game engines. But with Unity, you can find 200 people that have done it a different way, and there's 10 different web pages on how to do those things. So
I
you just
got you.
basically pick which one works better for you.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. That's good to know for you guys that are possibly going into any of you viewers who are possibly thinking about going into game development. That's good to know. It's just basically just kind of experiment, is what he's saying. Kind of experiment, see which one you're more familiar with, see which one works better for you. It's more of
Yeah.
a personal, is what you're saying. It's more of it's just that's your personal choice because
Yeah,
that's what you're more familiar with.
if you're familiar with game development already, then really just about any engine, depending on the type of game that you're making, is gonna do you well. It's gonna suffice for you. If you're not familiar with it and you're trying to learn, like you're trying to learn code development and asset creation and just overall game
Hmm.
design at the same time, then Unity is probably going to be the better option for most people, because there's just so much documentation, there's so much community driven instruction and stuff like that that's out there. So yeah.
All right. Well, that's pretty cool to know because I know there for a while. Me personally, I've always been like, oh man, that'd be kind of cool. I used to pretend when I was a kid. I had this. I don't know if you remember them or not, but it was kind of like a typewriter. They had word processors where it looked like a big old typewriter. And
Hmm.
I would pretend as a kid. I would sit down and just start randomly tapping keys and typing in buttons just to and pretending like I'm creating this awesome code, like I'm creating
Hmm.
a video game, or I would pretend like I was creating programs and
Hacking
stuff like that,
or
and
something,
yeah,
yeah.
pretend like I was hacking and all those action movies that I watched as a kid, and I've always been intrigued about it, and I just me personally, I don't have the patience to do a very big or very long project.
That's a good point because one of the funniest things that's the most true thing that one of the most true things that I read, it was I think it was a meme or it was a quote from a game developer or something like that.
Mhm.
But the quote basically was, um, "You would be surprised how much time I spend googling how to do the simplest things."
Yeah,
I mean, I've spent over a year now developing a character controller, and a lot of people just like well, you just drop a character in there and then tell it type in the code of how to walk forward and how to. Well, yeah, but there's a lot that actually goes into that. Like I said, I mean, you're like, oh, I'm gonna create a character that walks forward, walks backwards,
hmm,
turns left and right, runs and does all this stuff. Oh, and we'll jump over a fence and crouch underneath, some kind of obstacle. Um, but actually coding that stuff so that whenever you crouch underneath the obstacle, if your head accidentally hits that obstacle, you don't drop down underneath the geometry or just get stuck there or something like that. That type of thing can actually be kind of a pain.
yeah,
Vaulting over, creating a simple vault animation to hop over a broken fence or to hop over a half wall or something like that. That type of thing can take, especially an independent developer, that type of thing can take weeks or months to get just right.
yeah,
And a lot of people just think, oh, well, that's just something that's in every video game. That's got to be easy to do, right? And it's some of these things that seem like they're easy to do just aren't. Creating a bullet to shoot out of a gun and have it act the way it's supposed to intuitively act isn't always the easiest thing to do, even though we take it for granted.
yeah, yeah. No, I completely I get what you're talking about. I know there's been several times, like I said, and don't get me wrong, I'm not picking on Hunt just because for any reason
Yeah,
other than the fact that it is one of the major
the game
games
that you
that I
play the
play.
most.
Yeah, so
Right.
uh, when I go to crawl under a fence sometimes, or better yet, simply jump through a glass window, vault through a glass window. You
Yeah.
don't know how many times I get hung on there, and I find myself. It's like I hopped up on the planter, then there's no planter there. I hopped up
Yeah.
on
Or
the planter.
you're sitting there jumping in front of the window instead of going through it.
Yeah,
You're like,
yeah,
oh, I'm just gonna watch the window, I guess.
right. And it though I can understand how that would be, how that could be a pain, as far as in a developer
Yeah.
sense. It's like, okay, I want to jump through the window. And then all of a sudden you
Jump
imagine
back. Yeah.
yourself the mush face on up against it, up against the window there. That would that would
Yeah.
I could see how that could be a pain. Just something simple that you would think from as an average person watching an action movie or you doing it yourself, jumping through an open window. You
Well,
think
I
it's
mean,
so
just
simple. Hey, look, take one leg, put it over the wall. Take the other leg, bring it back up over,
well,
plant it on the
well,
ground. Something
it goes.
simple, but
It's even a little bit more simpler than that. I mean, look, find a first-person shooter that you don't vault over.
hmm,
That's been made in the past, 5 to 10 years.
yeah,
That you don't have a vault action or don't have a crouch, function or whatever. Find a first-person shooter that's been made in the past 5 years that takes place. Obviously Hunt is an exception to this, but that doesn't have a slide function on it now. I mean,
true,
Apex made that very, very popular.
yeah,
And people would probably think, oh, well, that's really, really simple. Sure, maybe it is really simple, but imagine interrupting that slide the moment that you started.
yeah,
Like that's the type of logic that people I think kind of take for granted. Like, you know, what if you're sliding and you press the jump button? Are you just gonna stand up, or are you actually gonna jump? Like, you have to code all that, and you have to make it
yeah,
work smoothly and flawlessly. You have to interrupt animations, which in some of these game engines, and it doesn't matter. It's not a knock against the game engine itself, but just and sometimes with these game engines, it doesn't want to interrupt that
yeah.
animation, and if it interrupts it, it clips or it does something weird.
Well, it's like, and like I said, not picking on Hunt, but it's like you got the reload animation.
Hmm.
Um, you could have two bullets in the gun still, but you want to reload. You want to stay loaded, of course. An empty slot, or a blank or an empty bullet could be a death sentence. That one extra bullet, could
Hmm.
save your life. So you want to reload it, right? But all of a sudden you're in the middle of
Right.
reloading, and here comes a grunt or another player. You got to start shooting at this dude to get him to go undercover so that you can go undercover and reload. Well, you got to be able to stop that animation. And so I could see how
Right.
it's like for another game that you and I play together all the time is Grounded. They actually, I saw that one of the patches that they did was being able to interrupt the attack animation to be able to block.
Yeah.
So I could see how, as a, as if I look through your eyes as a developer, it would be okay. Well, I know that my players, I know that my my I'm drawing a blank on the word to say here. Words are hard, Sliver. Words are hard. But no, the target audience that you are trying to reach out to is, which is us stubborn gamers. We like things to work smoothly. We want our games that we spend all this money on, we want it to work smoothly. So we want to be able to, if we're in the middle of attack but we're being hit at the same time, we want to be able to block. So Grounded was able to go in and actually, but it took time, and they had to make it into a patch later on.
And that might have not been that might not have even been anything that they anticipated. They might have just thought, well, well, if they're in the middle of an attack and they press block, it should do it. It
Mm-hmm.
should, interrupt it, and they just thought, well, that's something that we'll test, and then they just overlooked it or whatever, or
Mm-hmm.
it was a non-issue, and then it's somebody posted up on their Discord or on Steam or something like that, or wrote them a personal email saying, "Hey, this doesn't work," and they were like, "Oh, really? Let's see if we can't fix that."
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that, again, you think it's simple because everybody else is doing it, or you think it's assumed, but sometimes it's just not.
Yeah. Okay, so the last question I got for you is, how has becoming a developer impacted your life? Like, has it put any strain mentally on you to where it affected your relationships, or has it actually like encouraged you or possibly improved your quality of life any?
Uh, well, my wife is very very supportive. I mean, she's a gamer too.
Yeah.
I mean, you know that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but she's a gamer too. She is extremely supportive of you know me being a developer and stuff like that. When it came down to actually making this official and starting this as a business, um, it was an active decision that we both had to make. I came to her and said, "Hey, look, I want to make this an actual business,
Mm-hmm.
so that if for nothing else, we have the namesake, and we can start branding ourselves and start branching out into, hey, we're an actual game development company. We're going to start making video games and stuff like that. And now we have a banner to we have a flag to stand under. She was, I talked to her about it. It's not a cheap endeavor, and
Mm-hmm.
it was taking at least 2/3 of our income tax refund at that time. And she was like, "Yeah, let's just go for it. Like, it's a chunk of change, but if that's what you want to do, let's go for it." And I was like, "Yeah." How's it affected uh me other than that? Well, hello, cat. Um, talking about animal lovers here. Um, I find that when it comes to, like, gaming really kind of brings a whole lot of different people together. Like, it doesn't matter if, like, you have the same taste in music, or the same taste in movies or anything like
Mm-hmm.
that. Like, whether it's a board game, a card game, or a video game or whatever, gaming just, or even like a tabletop game like D&D, or a narrative based game like D&D, or Warhammer 40K. Gaming can really just bring a lot of people together.
Yes.
And at some point you can find a commonality in a game, that will help, build a friendship, or bridge communications, or whatnot. I mean, there's a famous story. I think it was World War I or World War II. I can't remember. Um, but it was Christmas, and Americans are on one side of the trench, and Germans on the other side. Or maybe it was Thanksgiving, but it was around a holiday. I'm sorry, I can't really remember it right off the top of my head. But these guys decided, it was in the middle of this war, and they were basically taking a break for a day or two of fighting, to celebrate their respective holidays, and they actually met each other, uh, across the battlefield and played soccer or played football, American football. I can't remember which it was,
Hmm.
but they played a game together. So like even any enemies can find, you know
That's true.
enemies,
I
can
have
find a
made
commonality,
I personally
uh
have made
in a game.
many friendships through playing Destiny 2, Grand Theft Auto 5, playing
Yeah,
different games, and playing
same
online.
here.
I've made lifelong lasting friendships. In fact, one of the guy one of the guys that I've met is audience. You guys would know him as Loki Russian. He's also
Hmm.
been known by his actual names, which is Jordan. He I've met him. It's been over 5 years. It's been more like 6 or 7 years, and we've been gaming together since Destiny One. And just the fact that we played every day and enjoyed it, didn't know each other for nothing, and he's actually a really close friend that I game with on a regular basis. You and I
Yeah.
originally bonded over music when we were
Right.
in high school. For
Yeah.
those of you that don't know, my buddy Sliver here is also a musician, a very talented one, and he actually at one point tried to teach me how to play guitar. And we were in a band called Blinding Shadows, and I was his drummer for the longest time. And we jammed
Yeah.
out, had a couple gigs. I went, of course, a separate direction, but
Gigs.
yeah, gigs. Castle Fun Center, a gig. But yeah, no. But yeah, we played music together, and that's the fun. That's the cool thing that I love about. That's why I like to stream. That's why I like to do these videos. That's why I like to play games. Is the fact that um, you get to meet all kinds of people. Like we have a friend.
Yeah, and it's.
We have a friend Epic who's in Australia. Uh,
Mhm.
that we game with quite often, and then there's also Poofy, who is in New Zealand, who, if I'm not mistaken, he's actually from Vietnam, but he lives in New Zealand. There's several people that I don't play really game with much anymore, but I
Well,
got
yeah,
friends that are in Scotland. So I mean, you just the world comes together.
and it's the same way with development too, because you find a lot of people that play games, and then whenever you're playing these games, you find out that a lot of people that you're playing with, not maybe not a lot, but you'll find out that there are some of them that are actually like, that are
Hmm.
also developers as well. I mean, I had no idea that, for example, Nick Gomi,
Hmm.
um, was a developer, and he and I were sitting there chatting one day, in a stream, and it got brought up. I mean, like, hey, he's building a game in Unity too, and I was like, wait a minute, what? Me and Zareth, the guy that's helped me at Darkmind,
Hmm.
um, we met in school, in college, and our key connection has been development. It hasn't been gaming all that much. I mean, yeah, we've played quite a few games together, and we've got some hours, logged together and whatnot. But we've got 10 times as many more, uh, dealing with Blender and Audacity and
Yeah.
GIMP and Unity, and just trying to you know figure out how to ease the workflow, how to make things simpler for working together while he's across the country from me,
Hmm.
and I'm on this side of the country, trying to make that work better. But it's interesting whenever you come across somebody, and you're talking to them, and they say something that's it kind of sets off your spidey sense, like, are you are you a developer, and you start talking to them about it, and you can actually talking about like Hunt, or any other game that's not meeting the bar for you in one particular aspect or another. You can actually sit back and actually talk about things on a development standpoint that most people may not understand.
Yeah.
And whenever you meet somebody else that's a developer, and they understand that the same viewpoint. It's interesting to see how that conversation and possible friendship starts to develop from that.
Yeah,
But
I
as
mean,
far as
it's awesome how something so simple and just one little common denominator, such as development, streaming, or just a favorite game, can actually develop a long-lasting friendship, and in your case, a partnership with your company.
yeah,
That's actually a really cool thing. Now I know you, like you said, you got three projects, and I don't want to put any spoiler
two or
alerts
three,
out there.
yeah,
I don't want to put any
four.
spoiler alerts. However, I do want to point out that Sliver will be out here. We will be doing once a month where we will actually be doing board games. So you guys will actually get to know him a little bit better in the future on my live stream. But I am going to go ahead and end it in this interview at this point. But thanks for taking the time out to talk with me and talk to the audience and all that kind of stuff. And look forward to chatting with you again soon.
Hey man, no problem. This was fun. So if you ever want to do a part two or part three or something like that, just ping
Oh
me.
well,
You know.
I actually yeah, I could see that happening. So for sure. But like I said, I appreciate it and have a good one.
You too, buddy.
All right, guys. So as you can tell, we had a lengthy conversation about what developers go through, and it went into some other things as well. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned as much as I have on what goes on behind a developer's eyes. So feel free to leave any comments, any questions. Make sure you hit that subscribe button down below, and I'll see you on the next video. By the way, before I go, if you happen to be a developer or know someone who is a developer, feel free to hit me up and I'll make sure you get in on the next video. I would love to talk with you about what your experiences are as a developer. So, I'll see you next time, guys. Y'all have a wonderful night.